Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad that you could join us for this evening's program. This program is being presented as part of our summer reading program. So today is the official kickoff for summer reading at the Hillsborough County Public Library. You can sign up now to participate in our reading challenge and get a chance to win prizes for kids, teens, and adults. And our prizes include Kindle Fire, Nintendo Switch Lite for all ages, and we also have tickets to Zoo Tampa. So that Zoo Tampa is one of our community partners this summer. We have a bunch of great community partners, including Hillsborough County, Children's Library Foundation, and of course, our friends of the library. I didn't introduce myself, but I am Becky, and I'm with Tampa Hillsborough County Public Library. I'm joined today by our guest speakers. They are co-authors and co-editors of the recent released anthology First Year Orientation, which I do have my copy right here, which I think is blurring a little bit, but oh, we all got it. We match. It's almost like we prepared that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over in just a second before we get started with our conversation. If you have any questions, you can type those in the chat for the presenters. We will be doing our Q&A at the very end. But without further ado, let me turn it over and I'll be back.
All right. So I
Hello.
guess are we in control now? I guess it's us.
I think we are. They left us in control, which is never good. Hello, everyone. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Gibaldi.
Awesome. And I'm Eric Smith.
And we are the co-editors of two anthologies, but yes, exactly. Battle of the Bands and First Year Orientation. First Year Orientation just came out. So we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Yes. So First Year Orientation, the fun thing about me and Lauren's anthologies is that we enjoy stringing together as many stories as we can to focus on one specific day. So with Battle of the Bands, which came out 2 years ago, which I cannot believe I'm saying that out loud.
I know. It's been that long. I thought it came out like 2 days ago. It didn't. It's real fun.
So with that book, we told the story of one high school's Battle of the Bands night from the perspective of 15 different teenagers who were all running around and doing their own thing. Some were in the running the lights, some were running sound, some were handling the stage, some were in the bands, and it all told one story with everybody's stories meshing into one another. And we wanted to revisit that idea because we had such a good time working on that.
It was so fun.
It was such a blast. And first year orientation was set at the first day of college.
Which is great. We were trying to think, so with Battle of the Bands, we thought about something that is a big moment for teens, because our books are young adult focused. However, readers of all ages can read them. They're about teenagers. So Battle of the Bands was something that was big for both Eric and I when we were in high school, and it's such kind of like a creative moment, and we're creative people, I suppose. Eric's way more musical than I am. I don't have that talent. He does. So we're kind of thinking about different other kind of milestones in a teen's life. And Eric, I believe your wife came up with the idea behind First Year Orientation.
She did. Lauren and I were floating around a lot of different ideas. We're like, okay, what is another big pinnacle day when you're in high school? I mean, well, there's prom, but there was already like a YA prom anthology that David Levithan did. He's like this scrappy author. You might not have heard of him. And there's the joke. He's hugely famous and wonderful. And what are the other ones we thought about? Oh, there's Comic-Con, but there's like a Holly Black Comic-Con sort of geek collection. So
Homecoming.
And then I was sort of just rambling to my wife about it, and she was like, what about the first day of college? That feels pretty important to a lot of people. And it was a bit of a lightning bolt moment. We're like, oh my God, yes. There's so many different things you could explore about the first day of college. Like, what about the kids who don't want to be there, or the kids who aren't going to college, or the kids who are working on the campus, or struggling as a way too young RA, or whatever the case might be. There are a lot of different ways that we were able to go, and lots of different story potential there. And then we had to go and find the contributors. How did we do that with this one?
Well, for the first one, we mostly chose friends because that's fun. And you're kind of choosing authors for anthology is kind of nerve-wracking because you want to get, amazing authors. And it's kind of nerve-wracking to go up to an author like via email and be like, hey, do you want to be in my anthology? We haven't sold it yet, so like hopefully we do. And also I hope you like this idea. Because authors are busy and, you never know if they'll say yes or no. So you kind of get nervous doing that. So the first one we went to a lot of friends, which was easier. And with this one, there's kind of like a new shift in YA where there's a lot more books focusing on college, which is cool because that is still kind of a important young adult moment, again, be it going to it or not going to it. So I think first we were looking at authors who wrote books that take place in college, which is how we reached out to several people. And then we kind of, I don't know, filled in some gaps in areas that we wanted in story types and writing types. We wanted to kind of focus on all different views. So like Gloria, she writes college, so I know we went to her first.
Oh, yeah.
With her book. And then, I don't know, we found a lot of really amazing people. We wanted to make sure the book was as inclusive as possible and showed every aspect and every, representation. So I'm very proud of our author list. I'm so proud of everyone. They're all amazing, and I'm still in awe that we got so many of them.
And I know one thing we were pretty what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, we made a big effort to find authors that we hadn't seen in a lot of
Yeah.
anthologies before.
Because a
I
lot of
love
authors are in a
YA
lot of them.
anthologies. Oh yeah, and and I love YA anthologies. I have a ton of them. They're one of my favorite things in Kidlit. But sometimes you see the same people again and again, and we wanted to try to get more folks in them. And
Right.
a lot of the people in this collection, like this was their first anthology. They had never been in one before.
Yeah.
And that was just, I don't know, made me really happy.
Yeah, and not only was it their first anthology, it was first anthology. It was also Jennifer Chen. It was her first publication.
Yeah.
We knew she was an author who did stories and was trying to break into the Kidlit world. And we got her on board, and then she sold her first YA, which is coming out in a few months, I believe.
Mhm.
So it was cool having someone who hasn't been published yet kind of get her first shot. It was really neat.
So one of the big, I guess, the overarching theme of our chat today is how it's better to work together on projects. I
Yeah.
think that's a big part of the writing process, no matter what it is you're doing. If you're writing by yourself or you have a critique group, like there's always some kind of collaborative effort that's happening, right? No books
Yeah.
happen in a vacuum. They always happen with a lot of people involved. And with anthologies, it's sort of even more so. You have all these
Absolutely.
stories that blend together. So Lauren, I guess one question we could chat about is like, uh, what is the collaborative process like when it comes to with you and me
Anthology.
working
Yeah.
together?
So I think what you said was really true is everything's kind of collaborative. Even when you're working on your own book, you still look for help, for opinions and all that. And I think for you specifically, Eric and I were kind of like online friends for a while, and when we became writer friends and all of that, so I always look for your input in stuff that I'm writing because I appreciate it so much, and I value the stuff that you tell me. So working with him in that aspect is fantastic. So we kind of put that together and worked on an anthology together, which was really cool. Um, so for us, I mean, I think Eric and I each have you and I each have kind of strong suits in what we do with our writing and stuff. And for us, it was you can handle a lot of the really contracty things and follow
Mhm.
up things, and I can handle the nitty gritty things like making sure continuity works. And then you handle big edits and does this fit in our space? Is this good? And it's really kind of cool how we can handle different things and we make it work. Um, so I love working with Eric. I love working with you. And it was a really neat process for us to be able to do an anthology together. What are
You
your
are,
thoughts on this?
I was gonna say, you are the spreadsheet queen. You do
I
have
love
your massive
spreadsheets.
spreadsheets.
Love them. They keep
That
everything so organized.
keeps everybody together. I super appreciate that. I think one of my favorite collaborative things about this book wasn't just with how you and I worked together, but was how a lot of the authors ended up working
Yeah.
together. We saw that with Battle of the Bands. We saw that with First Year Orientation. Um, with Battle of the Bands, I think one of my favorite examples of collaboration in that was we invited Brittany Cavallaro and Jeff Setner into the collection, who are two award-winning, brilliant, wonderful authors.
Amazing.
And they completely surprised us when it came to Battle of the Bands, because they had sort of, gone behind our back
Rogue.
and worked on their stories together. So when they turned them in, they had written about two sisters, one who was running sound at the Battle of the Bands, another who was playing drums in like 4 different bands, who had a band together, got in sort of a little like family fight, and had been drifting apart ever since. And the whole book opens up with Brittany's story from one sister's perspective, and then it ends with the other sister and her perspective of how things have gone. And it's just this really wonderful way the book is bookended, and I made me cry.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was astonishing, and it was just so fun watching the authors get together and collaborate. Lauren, can you talk a little bit about how with Battle of the Bands, and then we'll go back to First Year Orientation. But I think there's so many fun stories with both of them.
I know.
What was collaborating with Preeti Chibber like?
Oh my gosh, Preeti was amazing. Because so in Battle of the Bands, we all had different parts of the story. Mine was I was the stage manager who was trying to keep it all together, which kind of mirrored me trying to keep the anthology together in order. Eric was one of the performers, and Preeti was she was a merch girl. Her character's sister was in one of the bands. But Preeti had this amazing idea where it was her perspective in the audience throughout the whole thing. So she kind of separated her story by each band performing, which was really cool. So it's like during this band is this, and we had a lineup for the bands. And they went with the story order, the band's order, and all that. But in the midst of editing the book, we found times where we had to like change things to make it make sense. Like, oh, this can't happen there because this person's in both of those bands. They can't go back to back because they have like an explosive moment in between. So I'd have to keep changing things and go back to her and be like, okay, so I know you set this scene during like an acoustic set, but now it's during like this big rock battle and a guy's going to get kicked off the stage. Can you amend that for me? And I had to keep going back and forth to her. And she's wonderful because she would make the changes so quick. And every now and then she'd be like, yes, but give me a few days. I can't tell you why. And I'd be like, okay. And then like months later, she's like, I wrote a Star Wars book or I wrote the Marvel book. And we're like, oh, you're famous. Forgot about that. You were so famous. That's awesome. But so working with her was amazing because she was so nice. And I felt bad every time that I was like, can you change this big thing again? Or like I worked with Jenny Torres Sanchez, who's a Florida author. She might have actually done events with your library before. Her story was going to take place right before mine, and it still did. And she had the ticket taker, and the idea was her story was going to happen, and then the ticket taker was going to come into my story, and we were going to have an adventure together. The stage manager breaks free because she's one of my best friends. So I wanted our stories to go together. So I wrote our story separate, my story separate, and she wrote hers separate. And I made it all fun and that. And then she turned in her stories. And if you've read a Jenny Torres Sanchez book, you know it's incredibly depressing. So her story ended up being incredibly depressing. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't have this kid then go on this wild goose chase. So we had to like amend my whole thing to kind of fit with his mood at that moment. So I think it's a push and a pull with an anthology in a wonderful way, because you can just kind of make all these weird things happen because it's a fictional world, but in your heart, it's a real world too. It was a real high school, a real Battle of the Bands. It was a real winner that didn't find out her band won until the book came out. We kept it a secret. And that band makes a cameo in First Year Orientation. So there are, it is a separate book. It's a separate anthology. However, we did include like a handful of Easter eggs in case you read Battle. Like you don't need to know it, but the band is in First Year Orientation because we thought that would be fun. your character is related to someone from Battle, right? Yep.
Mhm. Yeah.
And my character's the same. So Lily, the stage manager in Battle, continues her journey in first year orientation. Again, you don't need to know anything that happened to her there, but I wanted to kind of keep her alive because Lil's my girl.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, lots of collaborating when it came to Battle of the Bands. We had authors working sort of in tandem away from us. We
Yeah.
worked together with the authors to make sure everything sort of blended together and made sense for everybody along the way. There were even moments where the collaboration came down to doing sort of a little more heavy editing on the project. We
Yes.
had that experience with Battle of the Bands with Justin Courtney for Motion City Soundtrack. You know, he's a amazing singer-songwriter. I love his band
Amazing.
terribly, but he had never done short fiction before, you know. So we did a lot of editing with him, a lot of collaborating one-on-one, and a lot of that took place while he was on tour, and he would be updating his short story on his cell phone from
On
the
his
tour.
cell phone. On
Yeah,
a tour
yeah,
bus. Like it was so wild. Like it was that I mean that's the spirit of Battle of the Bands. But yeah, no, he was amazing. He had a story completely fleshed out. Um and he did a wonderful job. But yeah, we would have to send him edits on his cell phone while he was touring with with his band. So
you know, you make the collaborations work.
that
And
was
like
such
a
a fun.
little asterisk to that, anyone who tunes into this, if you're a writer and you're debating reaching out to someone who's a celebrity, like in your world, whether it's music or movies, whatever it happens to be, just remember they're all like us. He was so excited to get to write a story
Yep.
for this, and now we're friends, and he was wonderful. So like, shoot your shot. Nothing bad happens. Nothing bad
Yeah.
happens.
And same with like anthologies. If you're a writer and you want to be in one, make it known because you never know who might see it and be like, "Oh, I need an author for my anthology. I would love to have you aboard."
No, absolutely. So let's see.
Sorry.
So first year orientation.
Yes.
The collaborative process. I'm looking at the authors on here. I'm
So
trying to remember.
they were
Oh,
some great ones. Jennifer and Gloria worked together on theirs because they ended up being having a friendship moment. So we kind of like got them together so they can make their girls friends. And then Lance and Kathleen.
yeah.
So, and being this Florida, Kathleen Glasgow's book, The Agatha's on the Florida Teen Reads list this summer, so you should read it. But she's, I mean, she has a lot of other books too that are phenomenal, and she's in our anthology as well. And so I guess the first year orientation, kind of like we said, is about the first day of college, and both Kathleen and Lance Rubin said that they wanted to write like a former child star going to college. And we're like, we're trying to keep all the stories a little different. Love these ideas. What can we do? And they were like, we're going to do it from two different angles. And they end up working together to make it different and have them interact at one point, which was pretty cool, right?
Yeah, no, it was wonderful. And I think, you know, like all the little tiny stories we're telling from these anthologies, like authors working together to work on stories, collaborating with authors when they take a look at the story as a whole to edit their own stories, reaching out to people that we admire to try to get them involved. The way me and Lauren work together with spreadsheets, and some of
So
us
many.
focusing on business stuff, some of us focusing on the creative stuff. Like what it usually comes down to, collaborating is just frequent communication and
So much.
figuring out what works best for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, we kept our authors kind of all in the know, and if anyone wanted to keep up with anything, we kept them posted on each other's stories. I would text Eric at like, I don't know, 11 p.m., be like, wait. Um, so it kind of, in a weird way, all works together. And the book itself is a collaborate. I mean, an anthology obviously is a collaboration, but the story that unfolds is as well because it is, like Eric said, the first day of college. It's them going to their orientation. Everyone there is either a local or, moved there. So we have different stories about um, kids moving, kids' parents who don't want them to go quite yet, and they're trying to like separate from parents. Kids who've been there already because they're on football scholarships or band scholarships, the former stars. We have the haunted dorm, we have the haunted library. So it's all kind of interesting because all these stories, though sounding different, collaborate together, and we were able to make them merge, which was fun. And we always like to bring up the haunted aspect because Battle was very based in reality. Battle of the Bands is just, current day stuff. But first year has 3 kind of supernatural stories, 2 ghost stories and 1 kind of time travel-y one. And Eric, how was fitting that in?
It was a lot of fun because I think one of the big themes we wanted to tackle with first year orientation was the sort of almost literal magic of moving on and being in a new place, the magic of moving on from living at home or transitioning into a new big moment in your life.
Yeah.
So doing it quite literally was a fun way to talk about the figurative sort of aspect of that all. And yeah, it ended up almost being like a happy accident because they had sent those genre-y pitches our way. And I was like, oh, well, how will we work this in?
Yeah.
And it sort of worked in quite naturally.
It really did. It kind of broke it up really nicely to have these different moments. And you were talking about literal magic. Your character is a magician of sorts. Well, he has a magic coin and a rabbit. He has a rabbit. So Eric's in this one. Eric's story starts the anthology. Kind of gives you a nice look into our fictional college, Rolland College. And then my character ends it. She's working at the bookstore and she's unhappy about it. So we kind of had a lot of fun putting all those together. So with I want to say most anthologies, the editor has a story in it as well. I guess not most, but some. So in our case, we did. We have stories in ours. And we have some questions in the chat. So I wanted to get to them that kind of segues into the first question from Emma.
Yeah,
Thank you. How is editing an anthology different than writing for one as a contributor? Which is a great question. We both did have stories in it, but we edited it as well. So I guess for me, you have to see the bigger picture. In ours, our anthology is different than others because it's interconnected. Each story kind of works with the other story. So it's one day of college. Everything's happening at the exact same time. Everything, characters cross paths, all of that. So for ours, when you're writing for an anthology, you kind of just write your story and send it away and hope for the best. With this, we have to take each story and make sure they all fit, right?
Yeah. And Lauren and we've been in other anthologies that are separate from these guys. And a favorite of mine is this one, Color Outside the Lines. You can see Lauren is. Where are you? You're on here somewhere. Oh yeah, there you are. Right there. And with a collection like this, yeah, it was just like Lauren said, you kind of just write your story, and you send it off to your editor, and you hope they like it, and ideally they do, or they give you notes and they touch it up. I feel like there's a lot less, a lot less pressure there when it's just your story as opposed to handling 14, 15, 16 others.
Yeah. With ours, we would get their stories in, we'd edit them ourselves, and then send them off to our editor and hope that even she liked it after they're hoping that we like it and then that she liked it too. So it's levels. And then, making sure that each story has its own voice, but it all fits the narrative that we're putting together. Which is cool. I just realized when you held up Color Outside the Lines that both that book and my story in here, I make Star Wars references to, and it's I predicted my 9-year-old would be obsessed with Star Wars. So that was a good question. Editing anthology is a lot of work, but it's a lot of rewarding work because for me, it's I have an easier time talking about our anthologies than my own personal books, I feel. My own personal book, I'm I made it. I hope you like it. It's fine, whatever. Even though I spent years of my life doing it. Yeah, thank you. But with this one, I'm a proud mom, and I'm look at this. These authors are amazing, and I'm so proud of them. You have to read their stories. So it's fun. We have another question, Eric. This one's for you. And we kind of mentioned pre-T writing for Star Wars and Marvel, and this goes into IP work. They love Jagged Little Pill, which they should have because it's amazing. If you don't know, Eric wrote the adaptation of the musical Jagged Little Pill, which is based off the Alanis Morissette album from the 90s that was phenomenal, and the musical's phenomenal, and his book is phenomenal. So what was it like working on an IP with an established broad direction for the story and characters?
Whew.
Yeah.
It was a lot. It was a lot. So I was really fortunate to be in touch with the creators and the producers and everybody involved there. So they had sent me the script for the musical. They sent me the lyric book so I can get a sense of exactly where the show went. And the big, I guess, what's it called? The big challenge to the entire thing was that the Jagged Little Pill, the novel, had to be a YA version of the stage show that is mostly, I would argue, the main character is the mom in the stage show, the mother. So I had to sort of put the parents in the background of the book and make the book more about the characters who are sort of dealing with the mother's decisions and indecisions throughout the story and her own life. It was really challenging because when I wrote the draft without the mom, it turned out to be, it must have been like 40,000 words. It was really, really short. And I had to email the whole team and be like, hey, so what can I do here? What am I allowed to do? And Alanis, Diablo, Glenn, they gave me free reign to expand all the characters. So I got to go in and give Phoenix his own backstory. I got to give Bella an entire backstory. I got to rewrite Nick and Bella in the book so they had something of an established like crush going on through the story that's not in the musical. It was a lot. So it was a big challenge. That was for sure. It was really easy, to be honest, to write the first draft because I had that outline from the Broadway crew. And then it was really hard to make up stuff for everybody. But it was a lot of fun, and I got to sneak in lots of nods to friends. There's a college named after Lauren in the book that the two characters go to see a band at. Anyone who reads that book closely and thinks about the YA world will see a lot of people they know. And when Jeff Zentner was reading it to blurb it, he sent me an email about halfway through and he said, Eric, who didn't you put in this book? Because there's a lot of nods to people in there.
I love that you do that though. I mean, not just because you reference me. I love that. But I love that you do because you read a lot of books and they'll mention like kids reading Catcher in the Rye or kids reading, which classics are great, but kids are also reading Ashley Woodfolk's books and you mentioned her books and Kathleen Glasgow and everyone. So it's really awesome seeing these books that people are reading right now mentioned in your books like that you're reading. So I think that's really cool.
That's right. Chapter 1 of Jagged Little Pill. Frankie is reading Ashley Woodfolk and Lamar Giles on the page. They're like mentioned on her bookshelf. So they're in the Broadway canon now.
Yeah, I was gonna say it makes them canon now. That is how we all become famous, is the little shout outs in books.
Yeah. So that was another example of collaborating. It was an overwhelming collaboration with all those people. I have to say, working with Lauren is way easier.
I'm not Hollywood, so no, but that is absolutely a collaboration because you had to work with so many people to get opinions and permissions and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So we didn't have the permission thing so much, but we did have to work on opinions and balance all of that, and then work with our authors where like when we wanted to insert things that makes the story connect, and we had to ask them like, is it okay if we change this character's walking by's name to this or this teacher's name to this, or can you reference this dorm instead? And they were all cool with that, which was good. And it made it more of a fluid story, which was nice.
Yeah.
Yay, so that was a good question. Do we have any other questions? I know, Becca, you said that you had a question too, and I want to make sure we got to questions.
Oh yeah, I have a bunch. So yeah, my first question is just how did you intertwine the characters throughout multiple stories? How difficult was that process? You touched upon it
Fun.
a little bit.
Um, for battle, it was a little harder because, like I said, we had like a lineup. So each story had to like reference the band before and after, and we had to keep changing things. There was one girl, Brittany's character is a drummer in 4 bands, so we had to like piece her into 4 stories and be like, is it okay if your drummer's now named this? That one was really difficult, in a great way, like a really rewarding way. This one was hard too, but it ended up being a little simpler where everyone had their own story and they didn't kind of cross over as much. So we would do it in small ways where like my character's roommates with Gloria's.
Mhm.
Um, you don't see us together, but I mentioned my roommate Gloria. Um, Eric, you have a character from another story pass by during your story. If you want to talk about that.
Yeah, Farnas Rishi's character bumps into mine while wandering through the woods, and they go off on a little adventure together. Also, when my main character is walking through the dorm, he's noticing little things in the dorm that pop up in the other stories. Like he sees
Mm.
Gloria's character and like her parents sort of driving her a little crazy. You don't know that until you get to those stories.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, but I think the big way all the collaborations really worked and the way the thread went through the needle is Lauren's monster spreadsheets. So Lauren would create big Excel sheet that would detail like every character, every story, every author, what character is bumping into what character. It was incredible. It was like this big checkerboard
It's
of
it
everything.
was it's my organization. It worked for me because then we could give it to them too to see kind of like this. This is
Yeah.
what the characters are in the story. This is what they're like wearing or they look like. This is where they are. So then here's a list of all the places that we already have and how they're named. So you know the names of the places, and we'd add
Mhm.
them as people say like, oh, they're now at the quad, or oh, they're now at the bookstore. They're now at this specific taco place. And then we'd have like people who like the band performing, like this is the name of the band that's performing outside in the on the quad. This is an event coming on if you want to mention it. um this is the name of the college, this is the color, like
Yeah,
we had to think of little things like
the
what is the
mascot.
name of the, yeah, so the mascot, the colors. So who was it? It was Christina Forrest. She named the college Rollin College, which just came out of nowhere. She was just like, she named the statue President Rollin, and we're like, great, there's the college name.
Done.
And then I think Anna decided on the colors of purple and gold, and we're like, sure, gonna be purple and gold. And then I'm
Mhm.
not sure how the owl came up as the mascot, but someone that was Anna Birch too. Someone decided owl, so we went with the owl. And we loved it. He's on our little cover.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so it was kind of fun having this like wild way of putting together. My story is the last one, and I made sure I had a reference to every single story in mine to kind of like wrap it up with a bow, and I wrote mine last for that. So we had all of the references in Eric's, and then you kind of meet all of them as you're reading the books, and then all the references in mine, so you kind of say goodbye to all of them. Um, and it again weirdly really works. Yeah, and it is written in a way where you can read each story individually and you don't need to read them in order to get all the references, but that is, if you read it in order, it does make a full story, which is fun.
Mhm. It is, and I had no idea that so many Excel spreadsheets were involved. But I'm also a big fan. Did
They're beautiful.
kind of going on that, you talked about how they created a whole world basically with your Excel spreadsheets. Did you think about creating a map of the actual campus?
I joked about drawing one at one point. We never did, but I did joke about that. No, but in my mind, I knew kind of what it looked like. I went to
Mhm.
Florida State, so I kind of used that in my
Okay.
mind. Um, but this is like a smaller liberal arts college, but I had like okay, here's the union, this is like the green, the the quad to share. We didn't have a quad. I didn't know what a quad was. I'd heard the word, but so I learned that. No, so we didn't have a map. We should have. I almost did for Battle of the Bands too, like because we have a high school and it just took place in the auditorium. But then we added the gymnasium and then we added something. So it was no map.
Sure. Sorry, I had a question come into me. How do you balance different hats in the publishing industry? Because I know
Ooh, I'm gonna give that to Eric.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
also
He's
for
got three.
Lauren though, how do you, as a librarian also, how does that work for you? So yeah, for both of you.
Eric, you go first.
No, I mean it's challenging. There's this wonderful quote from oh God, I'm gonna forget her name. It's not Danielle Steele. It is Nora Roberts. Nora Roberts.
Okay.
Yeah.
She talks about how like when you're juggling as a creative, there are some balls that are made of glass and some that are made of plastic, right? And like which ones you can drop, right? So for me, as someone who works in the industry and also creates, I know I can't drop the people that depend on me, right? Like I can't drop my authors who I'm working with. I can't drop those emails that have to go to editors. I can't drop contract negotiations and stuff like that. So like the books that I'm writing for myself, those are glass, unfortunately. Don't tell my agent I said that. But like, they have to wait. They have to wait as I prioritize my day job and the people that are counting on me. So that stuff comes first, and that makes the process easier when you're able to compartmentalize that sort of stuff. I write early in the morning sometimes, and sometimes I write on Friday, and that's the time I allot myself.
It is fun kind of compartmentalize. I do the same where I write early in the morning and during my lunch breaks at work. And that's it. But yeah, because I mean, I have a day job, so I have to librarian, and I love librarianing. So I call myself a librarian, like a writer librarian.
I like it.
It's bad. But I really compartmentalize my life where like my coworkers know that I write, but my patrons don't. I don't really like say I wrote that book. Like every now and then someone will check it out and my coworker will be like, "Lauren, it's your book." And the person wouldn't believe them, which is very funny. I'm like, "No, it's me." So I very rarely cross the two just because I don't know, like I'll do research while I'm working, but like I consider it two different parts of my life, even though they are kind of they work well together. But I don't know. I like doing both, and they work well together.
That's good. Yeah. In not Battle of the Bands, in first year orientation, you do have one of the characters who's actually not a college student. So I think that is great and an interesting choice. And what made you include that?
That was Anna's choice. She came to us about that story.
Yeah.
So she wanted to write about a teen who decided to not go to college. She works on the campus with her dad who works there. And she goes on an adventure during the day. There's a scavenger hunt, but college isn't for her right now. And that's an okay thing to know. It's okay to not go to college straight away if you're not ready for it. It's okay to do alternative education, like trade schools, if that's more interesting to you. It's okay to work. It's okay to make your own path. And I was really pleased. I know, Eric, you were really pleased too that Anna decided to add that story. I think it made a really big difference.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. Yeah, that was definitely, I didn't expect that. So that was definitely a pleasant surprise to see, okay, we're getting a good variety in there. And yeah, college is not for everyone. I fully agree. I mean, it worked for me, but I know plenty of people it doesn't work for. There's so many different pathways. Kind of going on that, what was your college experience like?
Ooh. Yeah, so I originally went to college to be a theater major, and I wanted to write plays, and I wanted to act and all this stuff. And I had this wonderful theater professor, who took me aside. He was like, "Eric, you don't really seem to be that good at this," and had like this very like tough love talk with me. And he's like, "I know you like to write. I know you want to write plays. You should really think about being an English major." I became an English major. I transferred to another school. I had these incredible creative writing teachers. And like, honestly, that like tough love moment from him was what made my career, I think, like went on to grad school, got my master's. I teach part-time now and again. it was a really good experience for me. And yeah, those tough love professors, they're great. And you can see him on TV pretty frequently because he always plays a bad guy on like SVU or the Law and Order shows. Like every once in a while, I'll hear my wife watching SVU and I'm like, oh, that sounds like Rich. And I'll go look at the TV and there he is being a villain. Yeah.
Did you send him a copy of Jagged Little Pill? You're like, I didn't make it in theater, but I wrote theater.
I should really do that. I have
That would
not
be
thought.
great.
I'm
You need to do
writing
it.
that down right now.
Please, you have to
Nailed
do it.
it.
Great
Yeah,
suggestion.
I went to FSU here in Florida. I did my undergrad there for 4 years. I loved it. I went not sure what I wanted to do. I also wanted to do theater, but I knew I wasn't good, so I was like part-time fun. And then chose English just because I liked reading. So I majored in English literature. I read a lot, was a little pretentious for a few years, and then read the book Prep by Curtis Sittenfeld and realized I don't just have to read classics. And that was awesome because that book is fantastic. And then after that, I went straight to Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. I was like, I need to write kid stories like this because this is the best. This is my heart. Where was this? So I did 4 years there, then I moved back to Orlando and did grad school there to get my master's degree in library sciences virtually. So yeah, I was an English teacher in between that, which I didn't love doing. I love working with teens, but not in that capacity. I edited magazines, but now this is more fun being a librarian.
How many English majors are like failed actors? Like how many of us?
Oh my gosh, I bet so many.
I don't know.
So many thought about it.
I mean, yeah, I was an English major too. It was not a fail. Oh, I did like children's theater. So
See, we all did it at some point.
yeah, very true. So what were some of your favorite books when you were a teen?
Oh, that's such a good question.
I feel like we always get these questions and I should know the answers and I don't.
Yeah, I mean, my answer is a funny one because I was one of those teenagers who was really into like sci-fi and fantasy novels, and a lot of teenagers who were into sci-fi and fantasy, they read up, right? They read a
Yeah.
little up. So like me reading up was I read a lot of Michael Crichton novels as a teenager, like tons of. I read all of them, everyone I could get my hands on, and was like wildly confused when I was reading like Airframe and Disclosure. I'm like, where's the aliens? What is this? And then I read a ton of Magic the Gathering novelization. And man, that feels like that was it. And then I read a lot of like random classic novels throughout my teen years. A lot of Jules Verne. That's why I have like a Jules Verne submarine on my arm. So yeah, it was weird. I didn't really get into reading like proper YA novels until I was older. And that's when I discovered it's what I wanted to write.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think proper YA was around when we were teens, though. I mean, it was very minimal. I was a theater kid in high school, so I read a lot of plays. And Neil Simon was my heart. I read Brighton Beach Memoirs and Left Her on the 23rd Floor, like, endlessly. So it was a lot of that, and then whatever I was reading for school. And then I worked at a bookstore, which is surprising. And I fell in love with The Perks of Being Wallflower when I was right out of my freshman year of college. So that was kind of like I was still a teen. My favorite.
Counts.
Yeah, I love that book.
It's great.
It's so good.
So of course, my last question just has to be, can you tell us about what you're working on now?
Yeah, so I have a new book coming out in November. It's called With or Without You, and it's a YA rom-com about two teenagers working in rival cheesesteak trucks in South Philadelphia. And then I'm in a bundle of anthologies coming out. There's a book called Boundless that comes out in 2 weeks. Let me see.
There's 2 weeks.
Yeah, in 2 weeks. There's a book called Relit coming out later this year. That's a lot of Latinx retellings of classic stories. And then next year, I'm in a collection called When We Become Ours, which is a YA anthology about adoptees and the adoptee experience, edited by Nicole Chung and Shannon Gibney. And I think that's it. Yeah. So short stories and a new book.
All right,
It's
just don't mind me
amazing.
taking notes. I'm just going to add to my Goodreads when we're done.
Add them all. Everything he writes is amazing. I am just going to be cheering Eric on the whole time. I don't
Yay.
have anything else coming up. I'm going to be working my
You're
library summer
drafting
reading
things.
program. So
Yes, that takes up a lot of time. I am well aware.
that takes a lot of time and patience. So I'm going to be cheerleader for a while.
Totally fair. All right, so before we come to a close, I do want to let everybody know that we have the 2 books we mentioned here at the library. We have physical copies of First Year Orientation. So you can see I got book library copy right there. And we have Battle of the Bands, which is available in physical copy, as well as on Hoopla, where you can get that book instantly. There's never any wait with Hoopla. And to come to a close, you can contact our library at hcplc.org/contact or give us a call at 813-273-3652. To reach out to Eric if you have any questions, you can go to his website at ericsmithrocks.com. Okay, for Lauren Gibaldi, you can go to laurengibaldi.com and reach out that way. And for library programs, if you're interested in joining our summer program, go to hcplc.org/summer. You can sign up for summer reading and see all of our other cool programs we'll be having virtually and in person throughout summer. But yeah, thank you, Eric and Lauren, for joining us tonight. I really appreciate this. This is a great chat, and I now have a bunch of books to read on my list.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Good night, everybody. Hope you have a good rest of your day. All right, bye.